Hi guys, welcome to Robin Hood Diaries tonight. Hope you're doing well. Uneventful over here, so I can't complain. Tonight was previewed as basically my work in radio. All through all those commercials and movies. Up until, I don't know, teenage. I was still doing voiceovers in and around ET time. Okay, radio work for Sean early on. We all know that I was, tossed into the film industry in 1971 under very questionable circumstances. I was a member of SAG by 71, bone of contention right now for me, since I'm being terminated for not paying my dues for the first time in, I don't know, 54 years. Not so funny. So by 72, I was a member of 3 trade unions, SAG, Screen Actors Guild, Actors Equity, and AFTRA. AFTRA is what you needed to belong to in order to do real radio and television niche work, especially voiceovers, and anything in that arena that's not like acting, movies and television. So, hand in glove with commercial television, which I was, thrust into like a sponge in the deep end, was voiceover work. It's sort of like any child labor. Once you reach the age of being from a face to a voice, then you have a new skill and you go to a different part of the factory. So with that came radio work. Again, we all know that my mainstay from A to Z was always commercial work. Commercial representation is head and shoulders above any other kind of entertainment industry related representation. If you have a great agent, listen, if you've got a good relationship with your agent and you feel in your gut that it's good and it's working for you and you're not weirded out or uncomfortable, awkward about anything, you're gold, man, hold on. But I'm an armchair mathematician here and I was in the industry, full throttle for minimum 15 years. This was not my experience, or was my experience, in that commercial television representation is leagues more professional, less personalized, and just above board, over and above theatrical representation. And then the gay thing, which was like, Hollywood doesn't want to admit that 20 years of young men were pulverized into the ground over being in the closet, having to do their agent a favor by working for them. What is ass backwards here? Anyway, but that issue back then, or probably still in commercials and commercial television, would be like going into Ford modeling agents saying, hey, did you know that Larry was a homosexual? First of all, the receptionist, if he or she didn't attack you, well, it's probably he, then you'd be laughed out of the entire building with that kind of bullshit. So, hence my affection for commercial agents. So, when you enter commercials, you enter radio if you want to, and I did. And I was actually a working radio artist. I wasn't one of the, radio, voiceover, I don't know what it's like now, but in the 70s and 80s was almost the most niche clique of talent that worked all the time. You can't believe it. So, of course, we all know Liz, my mom. I had to be everywhere and do everything that everyone else was doing. Top dollar, high quality. And I was sent to Joni Gerber. Joni Gerber is like the last word in voiceover teachers, at least at the time, for many years. Ask any OG industry person that did radio or anything like that in the 70s, even in the 80s, Joni Gerber. Joni Gerber was my voiceover teacher. Again, this was like a class, if you'd think like a voiceover class wouldn't be very like, ooh. No, these were like, all the voices in the industry were in my class. It was just not like once a week, I don't know, I didn't go for too long. My takeaway from Joni Gerber was lots of funny things, because she's hysterical. And she used to say, look, you guys, by the way, when you go in interviews, please don't friggin' remind them of what kind of a day you've had, whether it was good or bad. If you have a cold, if you have a runny nose, don't explain it. They don't care. They don't care. They don't care if you're on your deathbed. Just make it out the room and be available for bookings. So here's how the process would go with voice work. I would say 1/3 of the auditions. See, I went on commercial related auditions all week long. That's why I had to have, like, people be able to pick me up at school all the time at the drop of a hat, because I had to go to these things. School and the industry were, there was no difference in importance here. We're talking money and education and work and this and whatever. So that being said, you would go to a radio audition just like you would go to a commercial audition. They were usually smaller offices. Again, personable, lovely commercial casting people. Let's not even go there, how much better they were. Better being a relative concept. IMHO, but educated guess here. And so it was much like a commercial audition, except that you go in, you can be in drag. You can wear, like granny pants and a bra. They don't really care. I mean, you have to be presentable, but the only person really in on a radio ad or audition is the person recording it, which is usually the casting director. Back then, it was like one person and you knew them. That's the other great thing about with casting, especially with commercial casting going that frequently. These lovely ladies and gentlemen. Oh my God, Sheila Manning, John Fisher, Michael Lee, and then half of them were like extremely close friends of me because of Liz, because of all of her tentacles. So you would go in. Now, there was a knack that you had to do, and I don't mean being a speed reader, but it's very clipped, it's very straightforward. They don't cop attitude with you. You can either do it or you can't. They assume you can go in being a voice actor, meaning that you can pull it off. Y'all don't realize, maybe you do, that some of the best, most convincing acting that you will see is in commercials. Think about that next time you glance at a few commercials, which are intolerable. How unconvincing are those actors? How unbelievably stilted and are those actors? They're not usually, right? Why? Because they're sitting on airtime that costs what would finance 3 movies. There's a lot at stake. This is corporate. This is, 3 agency reps, 2 corporate reps, possibly public relations, advertising reps, plus you got your director, your casting, blah, 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 all on the set. You don't have this in film and television. You have producers, but you don't have Procter and Gamble